Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 189, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And, a lot less goofy than last time.
That is true.
But, we have another great themed episode of CoreCon. I already know that it's going to be great, so don't you worry. I planned on it. I planned on it being great.
You shook your 8-ball.
Yeah.
Is this podcast going to be great? Yes.
It says things are looking up.
All signs point to yes.
And it also says, Magic 8-ball, am I stupid? And he's holding a bowling ball. It's one of my favorite.
I actually very recently.
Cartoons.
No, I very recently saw that Magic 8-ball on my stupid one, but it had a different ending. It was like a big sky blue 8-ball, and it was like Magic 8-ball, am I stupid? And the reveal was like the Twitter check mark, the verified. It was amazing.
That's still really good. But yeah, this time around I have a renewed interest in the Nintendo Gamecube, Lotus. I wanted to talk about it this week because...
it's not actually a cube, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's close, but it's not quite.
It's not as tall as it is wide.
It's like the Earth is not exactly spherical, it's slightly elliptical. It's bullshit.
Come on. Get out of here.
Yeah, actually...
But anyway, it's a rhombus. It's a dodecahedron. But the reason why I got interested in it again is that I told you about this earlier this week. But Citrus 3000 PSI, Dan Kuntz,
pressures per square inch.
Yep. He is the creator, of course, of the DC Dreamcast HDMI project, which is one of the best mods for a classic system. It really enhances your Dreamcast. It makes games look great, and it takes a lot of the hassle away, which is the best part. But he came out with something called the Gamecube Loader, which is an optical drive emulator for the Nintendo GameCube. So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
I am super excited about that because this will give a new accessibility to an old system.
You can play Doshin the Giant.
Yeah. Well, I actually have a copy of that, but it'll make it easier. That's for sure.
Well, now you could still play it though.
Well, also, what was really good about a lot of GameCube games is if you wanted to play a European game, a lot of them had 50 hertz mode.
Same for PS2, really.
Yeah, which is really good. Almost all the games that you would want to get from Europe, Doshin the Giant is one of them. So Doshin the Giant was originally on the N64 disk drive system. It was one of the 6 games released for that, or something to that
I didn't
effect.
know that, but now that you mention it, I can kind of see it. Even as a GameCube game, it's okay. I believe it.
So they ported that to the GameCube, and it came out in Japan and Europe, and the European version is, of course, the only English version that we have of Doshin the Giant. So it was actually pretty cool. If you wanted to play that, you could get the PAL version of the GameCube one. So really cool stuff. I mean, it's a really interesting game. It's definitely a game kind of like Black and White or Populous or whatever like that. It's a god simulator, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't go as far as all that, but it's in that vein.
Yeah.
You can raise or lower landmass, kind of like before you start a game of SimCity 2. How do you want to adjust the terrain? And you can be nice to people and take them where they want and move stuff out of the way for them, or you could be a jerk and get the people to hate you, and you could go evil mode, so you could take your game in different directions depending on whether you want to be loved or hated and feared.
Yeah, it's pretty cool though that that it was available, and it's definitely a historic curiosity. But I kind of wanted to take this time to look back at the titles that made the GameCube special. So, of course, you had the original Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah, that was the launch game.
Yeah, it was one of the launch titles for the system.
Not only that, but that was kind of a bold move for Nintendo at the time, because it was not a Mario game. It was a Luigi game. Like, because they've always had a Mario game, but here, not only are you playing as Luigi and not Mario, but it doesn't play like a traditional Mario game at all. It's very different. So it's a game with Mario in it, but I wonder. But then people took a liking to it, though.
Yeah,
it's not what I asked for, but it's pretty cool.
It's one of those things where it got critically panned, but like a lot of people bought it when the system came out. So
yeah, and it's got a little more love in retrospect, though, because again, like you just said, like at the time, like this isn't a Mario game. It was like Majora's Mask. People weren't really into it when it came out, and now it's like one of their favorite Zelda games.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion is definitely a classic these days. They
finally released a sequel on the 3DS. That's way later, and now on the Switch, the third one.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a franchise now, which is really cool. And I really like the original game, and there's also the arcade game. So there's 4 games.
I forgot about that. Yeah, I've actually played the arcade game a bit.
Yeah, so like, it's a full-fledged franchise. It's Luigi's own games, and it's really neat. And I really like the graphical style, the art style in this game. It has like this diorama feel to it, which is pretty neat. Like the front wall of each room is taken away because it's your perspective.
Yeah, they do that in the Super Smash Brothers level as well. Like the mansion is opaque from the outside, but if your characters ever go in it, then the wall, like the front, fades away so you can see what's going on. It's pretty clever.
Yeah, so that was a great title. I really loved it when I went back and played it. I played it around the time that the second game came out.
It also does the Wario Land thing where your ending depends on how much money you accumulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can have, like, because it shows what your house is. Just like Wario, you can get a bigger and bigger mansion until you, like, live on the moon. In Luigi's Mansion, the worst you can do is, I think, like a doghouse, and the best is it's not on the moon, it's a super mansion. But like both the worst and the best rankings are pretty difficult to get. You have to, like,
it's really hard to get the best one. Yeah. It's really hard to get the best one.
Yeah, well, even the worst one, you have to outright dodge money.
Yeah, that's just nutty. But there were plenty of other great games for it. I mean, another game that really hasn't gotten a re-release. I mean, Luigi's Mansion has gotten a re-release. They re-released that on 3DS. After the second game.
Yeah, and the sequel. What was it called? Like Dark of the Moon.
Dark Moon.
Oh yeah, Dark of the Moon was fucking Transformers.
But this is the tentpole Mario title on the system that hasn't even had a re-release. Mario Sunshine.
True, Sunshine, and that's like that is a solid game. That's one of the. I mean, Mario Odyssey is that, but more at this point. But for years and years, Mario Sunshine was one of the more like interesting games in terms of movement tech you could do. Because Mario Galaxy, I don't know if your like movement style was as interesting as in Sunshine. Like the gravity mechanics kicked ass, and they kind of made up for that with the whole planet interaction, but like the planets themselves were kind of little puzzle areas, whereas in Sunshine you're doing all these flips, kicking off of walls, backflipping, sliding on the water, you shoot out. Like there's more that you could do as Mario without any power-ups in Sunshine, whereas in Galaxy it was more like what you can do with the environments. So they were both super clever in their own ways.
Yeah, so it's also pretty important because like in both of during the GameCube era, a lot of characters were added to the Mario cast. So in Luigi's Mansion, Professor Egad was added to the cast.
Whose name is a pun.
Yeah, but Super Mario Sunshine had quite a few characters. They added
the Piantas in general.
There's also Bowser Jr., who's a mainstay.
True, Bowser Jr., yeah.
And there's also, Petey Piranha was added as well.
Yeah, speaking of which, that reminds me, Mario Power Tennis, I love that game. But
it's really good.
I remember at the time being a little bit miffed that they just really leaned into the Mario Sunshine with Mario Power
Yeah,
Tennis.
because at the time, people were disappointed with Mario Sunshine, but it now has a much bigger
Yeah.
following.
But Mario Tennis has
It's
like,
much more
Pianta's
loved.
walking around some of the levels. Petey Piranha's a playable character, which is pretty interesting. And Petey Piranha is that's the thing that I thought was weird actually about the new Smash Brothers, like Smash Ultimate,
Hmm.
is that you don't play as Petey Piranha, it's a regular piranha plant. That was a shocking twist.
Well, his Smash Ball turns him into Petey Piranha. So
Fair enough, but
yeah,
it's still like, really? Like a
yeah.
nameless piranha plant, huh? Okay.
Really cool though. I mean, this game is much more revered these days. It does have some camera issues. That is true. That is persistent. But
Yeah.
as far as 3D Mario games go, it's still a really good game.
Yeah, and the shine sprites, like it's kind of like Mario 64 in that when you get a shine sprite, it boots you out of the level. But you could, well, it was kind of like Mario 64 as well in that some of them you can get out of order unless like the particular level called for it specifically.
Hmm.
There was an overworld where you could get stars there as well, like in Mario 64. I don't think it was until a later Mario game where you could keep collecting stuff as you play. What was it, Odyssey?
Yeah.
So I think even in Galaxy they would kick you out of the level when you got the MacGuffin. Like in Odyssey, you
Exactly.
just keep playing. I think
Yeah, yeah. There are way too many stars. If they
it
kicked
was
you
like
out every
700
single
or
time,
something. It's something ridiculous.
it's 999.
Oh Christ!
You could
Okay.
get 999
I mean, you don't
in
need
Odyssey.
nearly that many.
No, you don't need anything really.
Yeah, it's like
You
in Mario
just beat
64,
the
you
game.
need 70, but like there are 120,
120. Yeah.
and in Sunshine, it's something along those lines as well.
Yeah, yeah. But really cool game in retrospect. And just as you stated before, the Mario sports games on the GameCube were phenomenal. Some of the
Yeah,
best, probably of any of them. I mean,
Power
the
Tennis is so damn good. And
Power
by the
Tennis is
way,
really good, and probably hasn't been bested until recently with
yeah, maybe
Aces.
Aces. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because like the Wii U game, I guess was good multiplayer, but there was nothing to do for a solo
yeah.
experience. There's no like
It was a
story
shame.
mode or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was waiting for an HD Mario Tennis game, and like it didn't really deliver. Although one thing about Power Tennis, I gotta say, I showed you the movie at one point, but like the opening cinematic for Power Tennis is like
A lot of
a,
fun.
a couple of minutes long, and it's one of the better cinematic things like in a Mario game to this day. I think it's really well done. Like it's
Yeah.
better than it really should be. It's fantastic.
That's amazing. There's also the Mario Golf Toadstool Tour,
Yeah.
which is following, the N64 and Game Boy Color one.
Yep. Yep.
This is considered to be one of the best Mario Golf games as well, probably the best one still. And then there was Strikers, Mario's,
Strikers. Yeah.
yeah, which is a fantastic game. It's
I
really a
think I
lot of
only
fun.
played
That's
the
the
Wii
soccer
version,
game.
but it is a really good game. And
Yeah,
the music, like the
both are good.
character themes, are really good.
Yeah, that's actually made by the team that made the current Luigi's Mansion 3,
Oh,
next level games.
did you know that this game has balls?
Ugh,
Do you know what I'm talking about?
no.
The it didn't go over too well at the time. The advertisement campaign for Mario Strikers, like this game has balls,
Oh,
and it
jeez.
was like like in gym they have like all of the basketballs and kickballs and soccer balls in one of those like bags that looks like a net. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like a big sack where you could see
Yeah,
like the inside.
sure.
Well, they had like two balls in the thing,
Oh,
so it
boy.
like resembled testicles because it's like Mario Strikers is hardcore, and it was edgy for a Mario game, but like, dude,
Still.
get the
Yeah,
hell out of
come
here!
on.
Yeah,
Play it loud. Yeah, we get it.
yeah.
Let me see here. There was one final other Mario sports game on the system. It was Sluggers, which was the
Oh
baseball
yeah,
game.
okay.
The first baseball game that they made out of two. There was also a sequel to that on the Wii. Let me see here. There's of course Paper
Oh,
Mario Thousand Year Door, which is
that
considered
is
by and
just,
large to be one of the best RPGs ever made.
and yeah, to this day, it's probably still considered the best Paper Mario game.
It's like I said, it's considered by a lot of people to be one of the best RPGs ever made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a Discord group where people collect just whatever cool games they could find. And if people are going oh, I'm looking for good GameCube games, that's always a priority. You gotta have those under your door.
Yeah, let me see here. What else?
There's Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Wind Waker was amazing.
And by the way, speaking of, and there's also Twilight Princess, but the reason I bring up Wind Waker in particular is there were a few games that did this, and not just Zelda, but there was compatibility with the Game Boy Advance.
Sure.
In Wind Waker, there was a mode Tingle Tuner, where you could use the Game Boy Advance, but then there was stuff like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, where the Game Boy Advance was basically your controller. In regard to that, it was kind of like DS before DS. You had the little Game Boy screen and you had your TV screen instead of one system with two screens. This was kind of the precursor to that.
This was also a monumental time. Do you remember why Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles was special at the time, other than the technical aspects?
Okay, so there were the 4 Game Boy Advances because you could play it up to 4 people. You could look at your Game Boy Advance for a data screen. You could look at the TV for the thing. Was this something to do with online? Because I know you could leave messages or something.
I'll just come out with it. This is the first time that Square worked with Nintendo since the Super Nintendo.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had a big falling out after the 16-bit era, and Square ended up...
Final Fantasy VII was on PlayStation, and, not Nintendo.
Exactly, and they had a big falling out. They hadn't made this was heralded as the return of Final Fantasy to the Nintendo platform.
Yeah, and it didn't exactly pan out, but
they're making a remake of it. They're still working at it.
No, I know, but largely Final Fantasy is still on things that are not Nintendo, but that was still an interesting step.
Well, there's a version of 15 on the Switch.
And even 12 had Revenant Wings on the DS. There's little touches going on like that.
I would say that it's pretty much over with. I mean, they have 10, 12, and 7, 8, and 9, I think, are all on the Switch. So
it's finally happens. But even so, at the time, Crystal Chronicles and then it kind of not really.
But they after this they did start making the GBA versions of 4, 5, and 6, which are widely considered to be some of the best
anyone
versions
even
of those
needs
games.
to say it, there's 4 Heroes of Light as well.
4 Heroes of Light was the DS.
So it was later, but still Nintendo.
But this was a monumental thing. If you could actually muster getting everything together, it was a lot of fun. I actually played through almost all of Crystal Chronicles with my friends back then.
I did a little bit of it. It was me and my friend and his brother and my brother, because we were appropriate ages. His brother and mine were 3 years younger than I am, and he and I are the same age, so it worked out pretty interestingly. We didn't play much Crystal Chronicles, but I got a little bit of that 4-player Game Boy Advance experience.
I really liked it. The major flaw is somebody has to hold the Miasma Cup.
It's that one mission type in Triforce Heroes that you don't like. That's the entire game.
I'm sure that they'll have a remedy for that in the new version when they make that, because it's the main criticism of the game. But everything else about it was a lot of fun. I really liked it. And going along with that, there was a Legend of Zelda game that had a similar conceit. The Four Swords Adventures was just
the
sequel to the mode.
Just Four Swords on GBA.
Yeah, the mode on the GBA.
So Four Swords Adventures was the GameCube, but again, it had the GBA compatibility where you could see another screen's worth of stuff.
Yeah, so you could play as four versions of Link, and everybody had their own Game Boy to look at when you went into a cave or something, and also to keep everything straight. It's the second multiplayer Zelda game. It is a lot of fun. I actually really love this game. I would definitely love to play a full playthrough of that with you one of these days. And
that'd be interesting.
Even the versus mode is a lot of fun, believe it or not. There's a versus mode in there where you can battle each other.
Crazy.
it was a really, really fun game. I really like that game. The biggest
Very
flaw,
nice.
of course, is you need 4 Game Boy Advances to make it work. And
I know. Well,
all
that's one of the great
the
things about these
connectors and all that
re-releases,
stuff.
like for Crystal Chronicles, for example, is you don't need all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just it's a Switch Go. Like that's so much more efficient. Oh, by the way, some glaring omissions we've gotten here are like the Silicon Knights games,
Oh, good, yeah.
like Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, and of course Eternal Darkness. Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, some people have their hang-ups about because the cutscenes are like over the top to the point of being goofy
Yeah,
with like the fighting.
Do you know who directed those
I forgot his
cutscenes?
name, but it's the guy who did the movie Versus, which
yeah.
is very over the top, crazy,
movie.
awesome choreography. But considering that Metal Gear Solid already existed and the cutscenes were like relatively grounded, when you have all these crazy flips and shit going on, it's like okay, like when fighting Sniper Wolf, the final shot is like a 720 no scope. It's like, get the fuck out of here. But what I thought it was so cool though, because it was basically the Metal Gear Solid 2 look and gameplay, but for Metal Gear Solid 1. I thought that was so cool. It's like it's like this is another good game to shout out, Resident Evil Remake. Like, what if we just made the first game modern? That's what Twin Snakes was. The actual gameplay was just excellent. And then, of course, Eternal Darkness, which is still considered by some people to be one of the best horror games of all time.
Oh, it's really great.
Especially because of how meta it got. Because there were sanity effects in the game, which are not unique to Eternal Darkness. There's stuff like, oh no, I'm seeing enemies where there shouldn't be any, or like, that painting looks different from how it did before, and those are pretty creepy. But then there was stuff that would fuck directly with the player. Like, my favorite one to see you do, Vice. On the GameCube, usually A is confirmed, B is no. Just like on PlayStation, X is confirmed, circle is back. Unless you're Japanese, in which case it's reversed, but, never mind. But I remember there was one of, like, with Eternal Darkness, as long as there are no enemies on the screen, you could save anywhere. Which you'd better, because if you die, it's just the title screen for you. There's no continue option. So I remember, whenever you go to save, do you wish to overwrite your save? A, yes. B, no. But one time it goes, do you wish to delete your entire memory card? A, yes. B, no. And I remember you pressed B. And it's like, deleting memory card. And it shows a bar filling up. And you're like, oh no! Before it flashes back to, like, the previous room you'd entered. And your character goes like, this isn't really happening. It's so good. It's the best Lovecraft game. And it's not officially Lovecraft. But it totally is Lovecraft. It's freaking
That's
amazing.
a good one. There's also the Fire Emblem game, Path of Radiance.
Yeah, that's a very good one. That is one of the harder Fire Emblem games, but it's very good. I think the Wii one is considered one of the hardest ones. But Path of Radiance is damn good, and we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but that's where Ike comes from.
Yeah. It was the second game released in the United States in that series?
United States was not really into Fire Emblem until like Melee came out. We're like, who are Marth and Roy? And like Fire Emblem, I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily because of Melee specifically, but Fire Emblem really took off around that time. And we got like a GBA game or something, and then Path of Radiance, and then now we've just been getting every final Fire Emblem game.
That reminds me, we haven't mentioned Melee, which is like the number one selling game on the system.
A game so good that at EVO people still try to prioritize it over Ultimate, which is that game's like 14, 15 years old, and people still consider it to be like one of the best Smash Brothers.
Oh yeah, I think that's bonkers. Ultimate's like is so good. I don't know why.
Ultimate overshadows it. I agree, but Melee really was a damn good game.
Oh, it's a great game.
And Brawl didn't quite do it for me. Like I would go with Melee over Brawl, but it's still like either way, it's a testament to how good Melee was. A lot of its characters were clones, but it was just so epic because the original Smash Brother was 8 characters plus 4 unlockables. Melee blew that out of the water, so it's like, you mean we can do more with this? And it just took off.
Yeah, I mean, it made a lot of improvements to the original game and included a lot more content and all that kind of stuff.
I think Melee was still Nintendo only, though. I think it wasn't until Brawl where they started teasing the idea of bringing other franchises into
they're guest stars like Snake.
Melee was still just Nintendo, but it was a wider range than it used to be.
Absolutely. Going from that, there was also the Wave Race game for that system is really
Wave
awesome.
Race Blue Storm. But one thing I do want to point out real quick about Melee was that was the intro to Giga Bowser.
Oh yeah,
because like when I saw that, I did not know how to react. Like, that is terrifying.
I think that's
Bowser.
what Crazy Hand's from, too, right? Crazy
Hand's from... Yeah. Like, you think you know Smash, think again. But yeah, Wave Race Blue Storm was a solid Wave Race game, and it had that...
It's probably the best one.
Yeah, and now it's semi-famous now, but there was a secret in that game that people didn't discover for over a decade. The sarcastic commentator.
Oh, good, yeah.
Yeah, like, you have to do some weird stuff to get that guy unlocked. It was like Arkham Asylum levels of secret where like just nobody knew about it. Although in Arkham Asylum, Rocksteady had to just straight up come out and just tell people that there's a teaser for Arkham City, guys. Just go.
And along with that, there was 1080 Snowboarding, which was also a really good game as well. But moving on from that, I think that's most of the Nintendo games that I wanted to talk about. But I also wanted to get a chance to talk about some of the Sega games on the system because you got to remember the time frame in which this was coming out.
Ports and enhancements from the Dreamcast.
Yeah, exactly. There were a lot of games that were started for the Dreamcast that didn't get finished in time for the system's lifespan. So
like, not Sonic Adventure 2, but Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, an enhanced version. Not Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 1 DX, the director's cut. Mm-hmm. So they had like little extras associated with them. It was a pretty good way to play those games.
Yeah, and even though a lot of the Sonic games that they were releasing at the time came out on other systems, like you had Sonic Heroes, and other Sonic games at the time came out on other systems. This is really when Sega actually started buddying up with Nintendo as for a lot of their projects.
Skies of Arcadia Legends, of course.
Oh, that's where
that was how I got introduced to it. Like I was told about the game back in high school. I was like, yeah, I'll check it out, and boy, was I happy I did. Also, Phantasy Star Online. I played a little bit of that at my friend's house back in middle or high school, like a little bit of it, and I was like, this game's pretty cool. And then I was out in Gamecube. I was like, sure, like episode 1 and 2, okay, don't mind if I do. I don't have the enhanced version. I have base 1 and 2, but still.
They have 1 and 2 plus towards the end of the lifespan of the system where they added extra content. And then they also had episode 3, which is a whole new
Card Revolution.
Yeah, a whole new Phantasy Star game.
There's Baten Kaitos. That's a solid RPG.
Yeah, along with its prequel, Origins.
Prequel, which is American exclusive.
It's really cool.
Baten Kaitos was an interesting game. Also plays with cards. Voice acting is kind of hit or miss, but the graphics are cool. The enemy design is brilliant. I like the plot quite a bit as well. A lot of one-time missable stuff. It doesn't matter unless you're just a completionist. But, but it's a solid game. I still have to play Origins, though.
And a series favorite, Tales of Symphonia.
That's what kind of awakened, just like Melee kind of awakened America to the concept of Fire Emblem. Tales of Symphonia, like we've gotten Tales of Fantasia before. I think I like GBA.
No, it was the
GBA.
That wasn't until later.
It was later. Okay.
Yeah, we
first did have Tales of Eternia though.
Yeah, the first Tales game Tales of Destiny 1 and 2 were the ones that we had.
Well, we had what was called Tales of Destiny 2.
Yes.
But it was actually Tales of Eternia.
Correct.
The real Tales of Destiny 2, I don't know if we ever got.
We didn't.
I think it's also on PSP, but I don't think we got that either officially. But yeah, we got Tales of Destiny 1 and Tales of Eternia, which we called Tales of Destiny 2.
Yes.
Even though there was no relation with those games. Oh, except. In the Tales games, it's kind of like a running gag in those games. There's a Colosseum in all of them, or if not all of them, then most. And the secret boss fight is a previous Tales of hero. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh shit! So it is the Tales of Destiny guy. I forgot his name. I knew his name at one point, but I forgot his name. But yeah, we got Tales of Symphonia, which really awakened America to the Tales of games, and it got them more into it, because Tales of Symphonia was a solid game. I mean, if you play the new Tales of games and go back to Symphonia, there are definitely, like, it's definitely aged, but it really was amazing when it came out. And then Tales of Symphonia 2 came out on the Wii, and nobody gave a shit.
I forgot a couple Nintendo games that were very important. Mario Kart Double Dash, which is one of the best games in the franchise.
2 players playing one kart. My brother and I kicked ass at that game, because the way that would work is one player would actually drive the kart, and the other player would use items, but they could also juke left or right. So my brother and I got really good to the point where, like, let's say I wanted to make a sharp right turn, so I'm braking and turning to the right, and my brother would juke to the left to kind of, like, give us that extra, like, like, to just straighten us out a little bit. It got really efficient. Like, the real efficient way to play that game is with 2 players for a single kart. Not to mention, if you have like a broadband connection, because the GameCube had that. Phantasy Star Online could be played online back in the day. If you had, like, a LAN connection with, like, 4 GameCubes, you could play 8-player 4-kart Mario Kart Double Dash.
16-player.
Oh, even better. Okay.
16-player, yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So 4 GameCubes.
Yeah, 4x4. Really, really cool stuff. Probably my favorite Mario Kart until 8 came around.
I still
really,
have a
really
bias
good.
towards 64, but Double Dash is the superior game.
The new game is phenomenal.
8 is crazy, yeah.
It has all the old levels too, so, like, it's...
And, the DS game was actually really good too.
DS game
it was kind of overlooked, but that was a solid game.
3DS game was excellent as well. The Wii one's pretty much garbage. But I love Double Dash. I defended Double Dash as being the best in the series until
Double Dash
8.
is damn good.
8's just so fucking good. But let me see here. The big one that I forgot is one of my favorite games of all time, which is Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime 1 and 2,
because 3 was on the Wii. But yeah, Prime... That was one of those things. We hadn't gotten a Metroid game since Super Metroid. So there's only been 3 Metroid games. Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, and Super Metroid, which is basically Metroid 3. And that's it.
Yep.
And so Prime comes out by a different developer. First person. This is going to be
a Western
awful.
Developer at that.
Yeah, Western developer. First person. Oh, because Westerners got to have FPSs. That's the only games they understand. And it ended up being one of the best games in the series.
It's one of the best games of all time.
The original creator of Metroid got salty about it.
It's one of the best games of all time. I wouldn't even just call it, like, one of the best in the series.
Like, to this day, it's
really fucking good.
Probably people will say Metroid Prime 3 is the best, but to this day, Metroid Prime is like...
a lot of people would argue the first one, actually.
First one's still damn good, but like that, it's still one of the best Metroid games there is. Like, that's crazy. This was what, Retro Studios?
Retro Studios, yeah.
Yeah, so these are the guys who did, like, Donkey Kong Country Returns and stuff like that? Was that them?
Yeah, eventually, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, like, they're taking old franchises, like, can we trust them with this? And then it turns out, yes, we can.
Do you know what they did before this?
I either don't know or don't remember.
They were, the developers were part of Iguana Studio that made the original Turok games.
Turok. Yeah, I remember the Iguana, like, logo getting shot at, like, and, like, hiding away.
Yeah. I can't, I love the Metroid Prime games. They're, like, as a trilogy, probably my second favorite game of all time. Like, if
the music's so damn good.
Yeah, like, the graphics are amazing. Like, it just...
The graphics were ridiculous beautiful. For their time. They still look good.
Yeah, I go back and play those games if you have the option.
And you know what? There was a weird... I forgot if it was... Maybe it was Toys R Us exclusive, but there was, like, a dual pack of Metroid Prime 1 and Wind Waker. Like, that's... There's a combination that exists.
They came out around the same time, so that was also around the same time that Halo came out, so that was like a big year.
You know what was also good, by the way, going back to Zelda for a second, Ocarina of Time Master Quest, the GameCube promotional disc, that was also cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just it was like a new way of experiencing Ocarina of Time, where the water temple is a very different experience. The gold skulltulas are placed differently. It really is a classic example of, like, you think you know this game, think again. It's like what people on GDQ would do with randomizers. This isn't random, but, like, everything's in different locations, and you're kind of thrown off because
it's not like
if you have played the original Ocarina of Time, that might actually hinder your ability to do well at the new game because you think you know what to do, so you're leaning in that direction and you're choosing wrong.
There was also the F-Zero GX, which is probably the best F-Zero game. It was amazing, really fucking fast.
That game's also hard to the point of not being fun.
Yeah.
Like, it is one of the best F-Zero games, but, like, it is brutally hard.
Yeah.
I remember...
Lots of rubber banding in it.
Again, oh my god. I remember going back to GDQ, because I always do. Like, they always refer to games, like, when you're running a game, you know, when you're speedrunning it, and when they talk about playing a game in not a speedrun fashion, like the way most of us would play video games, they talk about playing it casually because you're taking your time.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember one of the runners talking about F-Zero GX, and they said if you have ever beaten this game at all, you are not casual.
Yeah,
that is true.
There was also like a number of partnerships with Sega and other companies during that time. Sega actually made GX. As well as helped make the arcade version, which came out around the same time.
Actually, you know, it was... Well, go ahead if you're going to have more Sega stuff.
All I was going to say was that Namco also partnered to help make a Star Fox Assault as well.
That was a solid game. People overlooked it.
Yeah.
But, because like, Dinosaur Planet left the bad taste in their mouths, but Star Fox Assault was legit. And it follows Star Fox 64. But no, you know, was also a solid game that like I don't really play, so I almost forgot. But it's iconic. Is Super Monkey Ball.
Oh yeah, I was going to say those as well.
The music's spectacular. The graphics are gorgeous for the time.
Yeah, 1 and 2 for Gamecube. And in fact,
again, brutally hard, but really good.
One of the most popular multiplayer games for the system was the original Monkey Ball with the monkey target.
Yeah.
People still play it to this day. It is super fun. I love the Super Monkey Ball games, and this is where they really got started. And they've gone all over the place since then. In fact, there's a remake of the first one that recently came out for the Switch. So, let me see. Apparently, they're working on a new game sometime soon as well.
Yeah, and I mentioned it for a second, but like Resident Evil 1 and also Resident Evil 0 and 4. Resident Evil Remake was one of the best looking games on the system.
Yeah.
It's like, again, you think you know Resident Evil, think again. Yeah, that is one of the best Resident Evils there is. Like, the controls are different from the new Resident Evil games because it's still tank. You know, it's not like the Resident Evil 2 remake where they reinterpreted it. It's an over-the-shoulder shot. Like, it's more playable by modern standards. This was old-school tank controls, but it had the look and feel of the old game, except darker, more gruesome. Like, it was not surprisingly bright like the original game was. Like, it was a legitimately scary experience, and it just so happens to be my first ever survival horror game I've ever played. I mean, Resident Evil 0 took that and kind of evolved the formula a bit. You have 2 characters you could swap between at almost any point. You could put items down on the ground if you wanted to. There were no storage boxes, so you had to go back to where you left your item. So it was a different dynamic of gameplay. Resident Evil 4 for a little
I was just going to say real quick, Lotus, that those 2 games were so good that we are still playing versions of them that are only just really upscaled today. Like,
the HD release was like
almost
15 years later or something. Like, it was a GameCube exclusive for a very long time until recently, like PS3.
It was a good reason to continue to have your GameCube around because
it really was, or at least the Wii, because there was a re-release on the Wii and for Resident Evil 1 and 0. And then Resident Evil 4, it was GameCube exclusive, but not for nearly as long. But Resident Evil 4
Amazing
is
game.
Yes,
so good.
But it was one of, I think, only 2 or 3 times, maybe 3, in my life that I was like foaming at the mouth. I gotta get this game day one.
Me too.
I will get this game day one. The other 2, well, I did pre-order Twilight Princess. I was very pleased with the trailer I saw. Soul Calibur 2, I didn't pre-order it. I just Soul Calibur 2, I like ran to the mall. I mean, I can't run to the mall. I drove, but like I got to the mall like when it opened.
Yeah, you really shouldn't run Lotus.
Yeah, down Route 1. Bad idea.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I Soul Calibur 2. Speaking of which, Soul Calibur 2 was on all 3 systems, but
got to play Link, man.
Xbox has like HD capability, like 720, but GameCube has Link. So you know what? At this point, the best way to play it is on like PlayStation Network or Xbox Live, where you have Heihachi and Spawn.
Yeah.
But the GameCube has Link. But Resident Evil 4, I lost my
a genre-changing
mind.
game. Like it changed video games from that point on. It was that
Games copy Resident Evil 4's general formula to this day. I mean, it still played kind of tanky, but it introduced the over-the-shoulder
without that game, we wouldn't have the shooters we have right now.
Yeah, we wouldn't have Dead Space. Honestly, we wouldn't have Remake 2. like every
Gears
game
of War.
every game ever at the time was like you know how every first-person shooter
Metal Gear
for a while were not called first-person shooters; they were called Doom clones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody said Resident Evil 4 clone. But every game at the time was emulating Resident Evil 4. But with 4, though, I remember seeing the trailers and not believing my eyes. Because it was showing the village. And it was like... It was something I would expect from a House of the Dead game, where someone throws an axe at you and you could shoot it out of the air. But this was not an on-a-rail shooter. You were just running around and you could just do that. Which I could not believe. You could put up a ladder... climb up into a second-story window of a house. Are you kidding me? You can go into the door on the first floor of a house, go up the stairs, jump through the closed window, break in the glass, and land outside. Like, this is the future. This is it. I was not ready for this game.
Cut the fuck off by a chainsaw.
Now, forget getting your head cut off. Well, actually, no, that was actually really grisly, because they delayed that. Because, like, Resident Evil 5 was surprisingly censored. Resident Evil 4 was fucking gruesome, and it was Nintendo only. But no, the death that really got me, honestly, was the guy with the Wolverine claws.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever get like stabbed with those?
No.
It's gross.
Yeah.
Because he stabs you through your face, like through your face. It's horrible. And then just for good measure, he gets you in the gut too. It's just like, Jesus Christ. The most gruesome death in that game by far, for me, is either the chainsaw for, ooh, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah.
Or the insects vomiting on you for the look. Because your face is like partly melted off, or you can see parts of your skull underneath. It's fucking gross. It's gross. Like for a Nintendo console, like that's unbelievable that they got away with that. Like Resident Evil 5 was on PlayStation and Xbox, and that was toned the fuck down. Nintendo went all the way.
So yeah, we might as well go with the other Capcom 5 games. There was Killer 7.
Which got a PS2 port, but Killer 7 was brilliant.
Yeah.
Never made it to the Xbox.
Beautiful Joe, 1, 2, and Red Hot Rumble.
Again, Beautiful Joe got a PS2 port featuring Dante from Devil May Cry. That's where that famous meme comes from. But or maybe that was 2, I forgot. But yeah, Beautiful Joe was brilliant. Not really my kind of game, but it's very
really
well
cool.
done. Yeah.
And then there was
Piano 3.
Piano 3, which is the only game that remains to this day the only of the Capcom games that were promised to be GameCube exclusives that have remained as a GameCube exclusive.
I also happen to think it's like the least interesting of the Capcom 5.
It is. And
also, speaking of Capcom 5, weren't there not 5?
Correct. So there were 4 games.
Yeah, I think we went through all of them already.
Yep.
Killer 7 is fucking great.
Yeah. So the 5th game was called Project Phoenix, I think, and that one never got a release.
Ironic, considering it was never born even once.
But there's a few more classics. There's Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg.
Oh yeah. I never played that one.
There's a few weird games, like there's Odama, which is the RTS and pinball combination game that you talk into the microphone.
Yeah, you had the mic for that. Yeah. There's Beach Spikers.
Yes, there's that.
There's BMX XXX.
One of my favorite underrated games of all time, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat. I fucking love that game.
That game does look interesting.
So there was like Donkey Konga, which was like the rhythm games. There was
I
Donkey
always
Konga
associate
1 and
those
2.
games with each other. I always thought that they were like the same thing, and they're not.
Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is a platformer you play with the bongos.
Okay.
Really awesome. A ton of fun to play, especially with the bongos. You could get the Wii version that was put out later, and not play with the bongos, but playing it with the bongos is a lot of fun.
It's how it was meant to be played.
Yeah, it's an experience. You should. It's just. It's kind of bliss playing it. It plays. Have you played any of the recent, or not recent, but modern Rayman games, Rayman Origins, or?
I never played any Rayman game.
Okay, Rayman Origins is just bliss playing it. Like, it's just feels so good and flows so well. It's just like one of those games that's just beautiful to play. Donkey Konga is very much in the same line. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, rather.
Yeah, Jungle Beat. One last thing I want to mention is FromSoft, Lost Kingdoms, best game ever made. No, but
Darkened Sky, the Skittles adventure game.
Oh yeah, the Skittles thing that was surprisingly subtle with its advertisements. But no, one thing I want to mention is one of the really genuinely great games of the GameCube was the sequel to Star Wars Rogue Squadron.
Rogue Leader, yeah, I forgot about that.
And also Rebel Strike, which was still very good, but Rogue Leader is just the gold star of that trilogy.
A lot of people say that might have the best version of the trench run in it, like out of all of them.
It's really like it is those games are so
beautiful.
Good.
Beautiful.
All three of those games are great. Rogue Squad. It's one of those cases where Rogue Squadron was revolutionary because it was kind of the first of its kind with that kind of gameplay. Rogue Leader just perfected it. Rebel Strike, again, people not quite as good as Rogue Leader, but still very good. And it introduced running around as a human segments, playing as Luke and fighting off the guys on Jabba's skiff at the beginning of Return of the Jedi. That's pretty cool. Rogue Leader, though, you could call your wingmen and tell them little basic commands. The graphics were just gorgeous.
They still look good.
They are some of the best Star Wars games. I can't say ever because there's 1,000 different kinds of Star Wars games, but arguably ever if these are your thing. But they are certainly the best of their kind.
Movies, set pieces. There's nothing
the
better.
space battle recreations. Good luck finding one that does better than this. There are lots of games that do space battles, and they're all fun in their own ways. Like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, very good. Those Shadow of the Empire.
Yeah, those levels
those space segments are pretty cool.
Yeah.
They really are, but
I like the Snowspeeder level in the beginning too. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
What, of Shadows?
Yeah, Shadows of the Empire, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't introduce the AT-AT Harpoon and Tow cables. That was on Super Nintendo, but again, every Star Wars game after Shadows had to do the Harpoon and Tow cables on the AT-ATs after how good that was. But Rogue Leader is just the gold standard of Star Wars space battles games. It's so unbelievably good.
I don't think it's been bested for what it does.
Again, I still highly recommend Rebel Strike, but Rogue Leader is just where it's at.
Yeah, and Rebel Strike even had ports of the Atari games in it, which was pretty neat.
Which themselves had the trench run, I believe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Excellent.
Although that was I don't think all copies of Rebel Strike did. I think it's the ones that had the little thing on them, comes with the special promo disc or whatever.
Yeah.
No. It was a separate case, actually. That's what it was.
I had
a separate. Yeah. I think I still have it. Yeah.
Let me see here.
This was back when demos were not online, people. Remember what that was like? Remember when you would just get a demo disc in a case?
There was Pac-Man Versus, which also used the Game Boy Advance link cable, and that was a lot of fun too. One person was Pac-Man, while 3 people were ghosts on the screen, which was pretty cool. And they had a limited viewing angle. Whereas Pac-Man, the person who was Pac-Man was on the GBA and could see the whole screen. Mm-hmm. That was a great bonus disc that came along with the Pac-Man World 2 and 3, I think. Which were also really good on the system as well. They were really great platformers. What else was there? There's just so much that.
Yeah, I mentioned it for just a second, but there was Zelda Twilight Princess. Oh. I kind of just think
one of my favorite games of all time. It's so good.
It's basically Ocarina of Time on the GameCube. What if we updated the graphics? It's got a very clever puzzle design, a genuinely dark take on Hyrule. It was one of the earlier dark takes. Ocarina of Time itself actually had a fucked up future Hyrule. That was pretty messed up.
Twilight Princess was my favorite Zelda game until Breath of the Wild. It was really good.
I still say Link to the Past, but Twilight Princess I quite enjoyed playing. And Wind Waker, very exploratory, but the HD version improved upon it.
So good, yeah. That's one of the Wii U games that's still essential. It's really good.
Yeah, but Wind Waker was earth-shattering for its time, and the Ganon, like I will say this, the Ganondorf fight at the end of Wind Waker is probably my favorite.
It's really good.
of I've played. It's probably my favorite Legend of Zelda final boss battles ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because honestly, as classic as Ocarina of Time was, its final boss itself was pretty weak. Link to the Past, like the Nintendo games, it was 2D Zelda. It's about what you'd expect. It was engaging, but it wasn't earth-shattering. Twilight Princesses actually was really pretty cool. But Wind Waker's was just... The sword fight with Ganondorf was so good. Like, I don't think Zelda's ever beaten that. It's just fantastic.
Real quick, I also wanted to mention that this is where most Americans first played Ikaruga.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because we didn't have like it was
originally
Japanese only for Dreamcast.
It was originally in the arcade, and then it came to the Dreamcast because it was a Naomi game, but it was only in Japan, I think. And this was the first U.S. release of the game, and it's one of the best shmups of all time. Yeah, it's really, really, really good. I think we covered like most of the major games. There's plenty still. I'm sure we're forgetting, but we got all the major ones. Definitely
Resident Evil 0 through 4 had GameCube versions.
Yeah, for the longest time, that was the best way to play like nearly all of the Resident Evil games that were released at the time. So really, really cool stuff. But we got to move on to fan stuff.
Mm-hmm. So we have a bunch of comments. So General Ledger is talking about, we were mentioning, game RPGs came from, Gary Gygax, or Dragon Quest, or J.R.R. Tolkien. So General Ledger had a comment about that. Yep, video game RPGs ripped off Gary Gygax, who ripped off J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings guy, who ripped off Richard Wagner, who he was, I forgot what the play is called, but it was something about rings.
Yeah.
What the hell was that called?
I know it was an opera, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sorry, I said play. It was an opera.
Yeah.
I forgot what it was called.
I know what you mean.
And he ripped off of Snorri Sturluson. I actually don't know who that is. Who ripped off the Skalds of ancient Scandinavia. It's the greatest plagiarism conspiracy in the world. Yeah. I know those really old European stories. Like, there's a troll on the hill. You must kill the troll. It's freaking
Get Billy Goat's Gruff.
No, not even that. I'm thinking like Beowulf and shit like that.
Yeah.
So Drakeologist
had a couple. It's not plagiarism. It's referential. Come on.
Yeah. So Drakeologist had a couple comments. Because I had mentioned in Gungeon there was a gun called the Deckard, where instead of an A, it was the number 4, the Deck 4, referring to Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And Drakeologist said, Shadow Warrior 2 had a gun with that name, although there are references from Shadow Warrior in Gungeon. And the Sonic movie is doing great. People seem to like it very much. Mm-hmm. A Yakuza movie would be very easy to make.
They already did that.
Yakuza movie was made by Takashi Miike. Not my favorite of his works. But,
I still like it. It's fun.
Yeah, it's still fun, especially the Majima scenes.
Sure.
And I'm not just saying this because I like Majima. In a way, the movie was ahead of its time.
The actor did a really fucking good job.
Yeah, it's funny because the Majima in the movie wasn't really like the Majima from the PS2 game. Because the PS2 Majima was a pretty terrifying guy who would sometimes be a little goofy, and it actually made him a little scarier because you didn't know what kind of mood he'd be in. But he went... the movie version was a little inaccurate because he was kind of more goofy, but that's what the game Majima ended up becoming.
Yeah, eventually.
So it's look at that.
I think the movie was made after the second game, though.
Oh, was it? Yeah. That would make more sense then.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Drakeologist's other comment, CRPGs to me are appealing, but the combat always was a turnoff. For crazy mods, you could see some absolute mental amount of work put in GZ Doom. Yeah, no doubt. Pillow Blaster and Ariance being the mad lads of the top tier type. Then there was the Binding of Isaac mod Afterbirth, which we still don't see the official conversion yet.
It's coming.
Yeah, what was that called?
Afterbirth Plus?
Well, no, because we have that.
Oh, okay.
Damn. It's like the mod that's going to come out for Redemption.
Yeah.
What the hell was it called? Because he's mentioned this to me before. It's this whole thing. It's professional quality, which is why the professionals are actually just directly using it. Shit, I forgot what it's called, but yeah, that was a whole Isaac thing. There's also amusing stuff on Terraria and Minecraft. Yeah, I imagine you could have a real load of fun with that.
Repentance is...
Well, Repentance is what the official thing is going to be called, but what was the...
Anti-Birth.
Anti-Birth, thank you. And then Living Corpse says, the Sega movie opening we're talking about, showing various nods to Sega games, for the Sonic movie is in the same style as the Capcom opening for the animated Resident Evil movies. Fair enough, that's pretty cool. I forgot about that, actually. Because I've only seen each Resident Evil movie once, back when they were newish. Vendetta just got fucking goofy. School Filmer says, I really ought to get back to Skyrim and Witcher 3 at some point. So far, I've enjoyed them quite a lot. Also, the twins did have a new battery for my new 3DS. Yay! I salvaged it from a broken 3DS XL that one of them had. So now while I wait for Redmic to hopefully arrive on the Switch, I'll use Redmic Ultimate in the meantime. Yay! Saved it! And one more comment. Fakafan says, this is in regard to our intro last week. He says, cat's out of the bag. Lotus doesn't actually exist. This whole time, it was just Vice pretending to be Lotus and using editing to make it look like a seamless conversation.
Wow, that would be part
of the process. I can tell you that the recording nights are long. What I remember about Morrowind on the Xbox is the loading times were ridiculously long. Like, every load was over 30 seconds. It got real old real fast.
Could you imagine putting up with me? Like, he would just be sitting there putting in his part while I do 2 parts of the podcast by myself.
That's excruciating. Nobody's doing that. Okay, so for our question,
be like Austin Powers.
Yeah, no one's doing that shit. So for our question, School Filmer asks, have you ever played a game you thought you wouldn't enjoy, but ended up enjoying it quite a bit? Here's some context. I bought a game called Slayaway Camp Butcher's Cut, a puzzle game with a twisted premise, kind of like slasher movies, especially Friday the 13th, which is funny because the developers actually did make a puzzle game with the Friday the 13th license, for a third of its price. Initially, I thought, that's one for the bucket list. But as I progressed through the different levels, I found myself thinking of how to solve each level, even if I had to use a walkthrough for the toughest ones. Haven't played in a while, though. So yeah, is there a game we thought we wouldn't enjoy, but ended up actually enjoying it quite a bit?
My pick for this is SteamWorld Heist.
Okay.
I really loved SteamWorld Dig, and I bought SteamWorld Heist when it came out, just kind of as a devotion kind of thing, because I was like, I'll give it a try. But it wasn't really my style in listening to the description of it, and I just, it wasn't my type of game. I am not a big tactics like RPG fan or anything like that, and once SteamWorld Dig 2 came out, I was like, I should beat SteamWorld Heist before I move on to SteamWorld Dig 2, and I was really glad I did because I actually ended up loving SteamWorld Heist. It had just the right amount of action mixed with the tactics that made it so much fun. Had some RPG elements, but most of it was light. But for the most part, it actually kind of felt almost like playing Worms. Worms Armageddon, okay. And I loved playing Worms Armageddon back in the day.
Probably to this day the best Worms game.
Oh, it was so good. I used to play it long nights with my friends back in high school and on the Dreamcast, and I absolutely loved Worms Armageddon. And this game it had some of the feeling. It's not exactly the same, but and I absolutely loved playing that game. I thought I was going to dread getting through it, and I played through the whole thing, and I loved every moment of it. I thought it was great.
In my case, I guess I have a couple of examples. One of them was kind of the Kingsfield games. I played Eternal Ring, and I thought it was okay. It was interesting.
Had that giant fuck off bee.
That was pretty fantastic. But so when I went to Kingsfield, I was like, it's gonna play like Eternal Ring, but like on the PS1, it's gonna be jankier. But when I got to actually playing the games with a guide, I actually found myself getting invested in their stories, and like I find them to be genuinely enjoyable. I thought I would like tolerate my way through at least one of them. Like I'll say that I played a Kingsfield game. I didn't think I would dislike it, but I thought I'd be like, eh. But I actually ended up quite liking them, especially the latest one that I have played. All that's left for me now is the PS2 one. Also, this isn't the game, but a version of it. At one point, you had introduced me to Duke Nukem 3D, released on the Vita.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember thinking, this is a keyboard game. You know, it's made for PC. You move with, at the time, because these are old controls, you move with the arrow keys. This is before WASD. I mean, you could customize the controls however you'd like, I think. But you moved with the arrow keys. You jumped with spacebar, ducked... No, you jumped with A, actually. You ducked with Z. You opened a door with spacebar. But most importantly, you had 10 weapons, which were 1 through 0 on your keyboard. So I was like, how the hell are you going to get all this on the Vita, this handheld system? But when I tried actually playing it, true, you have to scroll through weapons, but the game actually plays way better than I thought it would. Because despite the various locations of the keys I mentioned on the keyboard, there actually aren't that many buttons outside of the number of weapons you have. So it was very playable in a handheld format. Even if you played it on a regular controller on a TV, it would probably play just fine. So I was impressed by how well it played. Like, I could actually find myself playing the game on the Vita if I really wanted to. So that was just an interesting little take on a game that I already knew was good.
Mm-hmm. I think that that was a good review here of that question. We want to thank everybody who really came forward with the questions this time. School Filmer, thank you so much.
Yeah, School Filmer, and also for further questions in the future. We also got some from Insane Buffoon and Vacathon, so we'll get to those in following weeks. But we have a healthy supply right now, so thank you all very much for your comments and for your questions.
Yeah, no, this was a great week for that. Thanks a lot, guys. And don't be afraid to continue giving them. We could always use some more for backup.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't be a stranger.
Well, that's the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. Helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays on our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me on as vysethebold on pretty much everything.
And you could follow me in my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting involved in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
Okay, well, thanks everybody. We really enjoyed this show, and we'll catch everybody next week.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.